There was no vlog last week again because one, the file I had was corrupted, and two, I got a bit angry, and I didn't want to be angry in these. I don't want to be angry in these at all. It's just, sometimes the frustration bleeds over into things. But that really wasn't coming from yuohger last week, as it's pretty much just continuing. It's starting on Kubal's final plan, and this week was ending Kubal's final plan before he was eliminated, and honestly, it was not badly executed last week, with him finding that his big plan of turning the yuohger and Genis on each other kind of backfires when the whole get Genis to Earth so he's weaker than when he's on the Sagittariarch backfires by him integrating into himself a device that collects power from the Earth like the yuohger used for their abilities. And honestly, my only big issue with that episode was the sudden revelation that Genis had a life support issue that can only be maintained on the Sagittariarch. And honestly, it feels like an inconsequential... Excuse me. It felt like an inconsequential detail to hinge so much of the story upon when it wasn't addressed at any point before this that such was an issue for that entity. I mean, it explains why he rarely left the ship, if not at all, depending on how the whole thing with Misao went down. But I would have liked that detail and revelation more had it been a more addressed detail, mentioned once or twice, and Kubal musing over it to kind of seed the idea of his plan. But pretty much the only time we only got the first big instances of Kubal planning to backstab Genis around the time we got the Bangray arc. So it feels like it's more in hindsight we're seeing Kubal's planned treachery in some of the earlier stuff without really the seeding of the full plan being put together over time. That's something of an issue I've had with yuohger, is that its individual episodes and overarching story are good, is that filling in all the details has been kind of on the back burner a bit. This week, more showing how Kubal's panicking and trying to obtain mercy from Genis as a survivor. He's been a survivor for his dead race so long that when faced with the certainty of his own end, he kind of backpedals in all respects from trying to get his revenge on Genis. So it's like, he's... I think they mentioned this in the episode specifically, but he's being ruled by fear, and that leads him to his ultimate destruction, where, of course, when he tries to kill a bunch of people to make him the next contestant in the blood game to earn his, earn the rights to live back from Genis's planned death for him, that leads him up against the yuohger, and of course he dies. And I don't want to say it's a ninja level giant monster brawl, because they actually do struggle with it a bit, but it seems like they're not really using any of the mechs very well anymore. That was mostly a big problem that I had with Ninja's choreography for such scenes, but this was supposed to be the Winter Break special, where you usually get a bunch of special mecha brawls, special combinations we don't really see, all the mechs fighting together instead of just going straight for the big combo, and then you get a big push for great combinations and all that. The most notorious, of course, I feel, is the climax to the Neji Ranger arc for Mega Ranger, which I reviewed last year, and how they concluded a long-running story arc with that, with high stakes and a climactic battle, and in comparison, this seems... Well, it's concluding the story of one of the villains and a story arc involving him that's been going on for a long time, so you can more or less clear the slate for the last arc of the series. It feels like a bit more anticlimactic, as it doesn't feel as big an event to see Kubal finally go down for his machinations that have only been... Well, he's been scheming in the background without really having done much in the show. At least that's what I feel. The bigger thing that baffled me for a bit was the fact that, as we learned in this episode, Yamato's father is still alive. Now, this confused me initially because I had assumed, like several other people I've talked to about this show, that we thought Yamato's father was dead. We thought Yamato's father was Bud's first friend that fell into Zooland and, got killed there. And since he seemed to be without both of his parents, and that would explain that greater connection to his mother thus far, because he lost his father, then he was alone with his mother, and then he lost his mother and moved in with his uncle. That's the kind of series of events we thought were going through all this with the Bud arc. Apparently, that is completely unrelated, aside from what got Bud on Earth to what got Bud on Earth to save Yamato's life when he was a kid, and pass on that kind of compassion. Not what I was the exact word I was looking for, but building off the idea of the philosophy Yamato has, and that they're all connected. All of these events are connected. I thought, story-wise, this was following the same path. Yamato's father connected him and Bud together on this greater, from the greater perspective of the franchise and Yamato's philosophy and how the show's thematic has pretty much gone thus far. Turns out, no, his father's just a jackass who works as a doctor and couldn't save his mother and wasn't there for his mother when his mother died, so he's got issues with his dad, and that's why he lives with his uncle, because his dad really doesn't care about him. Whoops. Honestly, I don't like this twist, but it kind of fits why he wouldn't really like his dad if his entire life philosophy, their respective life philosophies are in conflict. And honestly, it would have been more amusing. Okay, they've been doing the Spring Break special crossovers for a couple years now, and I feel this would have been more fit yuohger in this case with the whole doctor thing for them to kind of cross over with Kamen Rider Exide right now. I mean, that's not usually not how they sync these up, but it would have been kind of interesting to see those sets of characters to interact for a bit. That's obviously not going to happen. We're probably going to have Exides with the Q Ranger when they premiere. And yes, we're getting more details about them coming in, but we'll see how that goes when that shows up. Anyways, since they spent so little time with this, I'm curious how they're going to come back to this detail. Like, is it more a Mario's been more of a dad to him than his actual dad? Are they going to follow up with this? It seems like something late in the show to throw in my opinion. Especially since it throws a lot of what we assumed about the series out the window with Yamato and Bud's relation. Admittedly, yeah, we weren't going on by much for that, just a few presumptive scenes, so it's not completely out of nowhere. It's just, it bugs me and I don't know why. Maybe because I gotten so used to the idea of Bud's human friend relating to Yamato that a shift in expectations is, I shouldn't say it's unwelcome, but it was definitely unexpected. Exide. I hated last week's episode. I really, really did. And it comes down to the fact that it pretty much ran on a broken Aesop for how they first got all of the 4 Doctor Riders to armor up with the Dragon Knight Hunter Gashot. And it pretty much started from Hinata tearing down Emu for not working with the others as a team, and, trying to do all of this on his own. Except, what was broken about that to me was how Emu, throughout the show, had been trying to do that, had been turned down every time, and every time he tried to work with the others, or, not acquiesced, but, play along with them in their own pursuits to actually get the job of saving patients done, he's been stabbed in the back for it. Nearly every time. Either professionally with Kagami, or, actually physically being stabbed in the back by Taiga, or being lied to and having his trust and faith betrayed by Kujo. And, I understand Emu's perspective from Hinata being too important to him and why he does the work he does in trying to save people, for him to, for once, remove all pretenses, actually go for the direct goal to save his life. If the rest of them are not going to help, I understood how he would be so frantic in that kind of situation to just, throw it out the window, screw the necessities. He wants to save someone special to him. And for the show to then have that person to tear him down for something that's not his fault, because it really is the others that have refused to work with him, even though they have common goals all this time, and, just give him no chance to explain himself, to just be the one that's used as the scapegoat for the other three's actions, that got me really angry, as that's not really building a situation which would lead to them then teaming up against Graphite to defeat Graphite. Presumably he's coming back because, yeah, that's probably how the series is going to go, and save all these other people when the rest of them don't really care about saving people. They care about their own differing priorities. Emu's the only one that really cares about saving the patients, stopping the... Okay, in some respect, they all care about stopping the bugsters so they can just go back to what they wanted to be doing. But, it was the wrong person to throw that at. I think it would have worked better had he dressed down all four of them, and then for the others to, pretty much deride the idea Hinata was presenting, but Emu to then be open to it, because that's what he was trying to do in the first place. It feels like it took it from the wrong angle for presenting the idea that multiple people work together to achieve a greater goal, as was being presented in Hinata's analogy with, it wasn't just Hinata that saved Emu's life, it was all the people that supported the surgeon and the doctor in the operating room and all that other things. And I also feel it was wrong to tear down Emu for this personal, emotional connection to Hinata that was driving him to do that, because unlike all of the other doctors and nurses and attendants that were parts of saving Emu's life, Hinata was the only one that connected to him as a person, as Emu does. Really passed along the stylization of how Emu acts as a doctor to him, that will make him a more important figure in his life. So it's like, you idolize your dad. An example. You idolize a parental figure, and then what really happens when they say you are worthless at everything you've tried to do? And that's really what that moment felt like to me, and it got me... I feel they missed the point, is what I'm getting at with that. And I wanted to address that before moving on to this next episode, because I feel it more ties into this, as it's continuing the arc of trying to figure out what the hell Hinata did to Emu 16 years ago that allows him the ability to use a gaming driver in the Gashats right now to transform and fight with all of the others, as they still don't have a timeline down for how Emu got the ability to use a gaming driver. And all Kujo's got right now, as was continued on with this episode, is Hinata, as we were shown, gave Emu the Wonder Swan, which apparently the Wonder Swan is suddenly a big plot point in the episode, and I'm amused by this because I started out watching this show with wondering how the hell they got one of those. So it's funny to me that this item, and they even admit it was a rare item at the time because only around a few million of them were even made originally, is actually playing a continuing part in the story arc, which means this episode instantly buys points with me for calling back to that in Kirya's quest for the truth. And Kirya, admittedly, I've not liked the guy and his lying, but since his first episode, they have severely dialed it back, and he is, I guess, playing his role well now in trying to ferret out the truth from the lies of everything, and kind of trying to not seem like a complete and utter dick. Where was I going with this? What's the guy's name? I'm blanking on the name again. I hate it when I do that. Dan takes things to the next phase in his perfect Goshot game challenge thing with tricking everyone else into getting death data for him, and so Emu will play along. He targets a kid with a broken leg as the next Bugster victim, and pretty much trying to get them all to kill him so he'll get that data for the next Goshot he's developing. And naturally this leads to a couple confrontations. But the first one, I think, is pretty badly executed for one detail I keep remembering. Exide uses Gekitotsu robots, the level 3 form, against Genm in his Shakuriki form, even though we already know with Gekitotsu's robots' left arm can deal more damage than any other weapon in their arsenal currently, including the Dragonite Hunter armor. So what does Emu do when Genm shows up? He equips Dragonite Hunter. Yes. Why? I mean, it's kind of underselling Emu as this genius gamer where he's using equipment he's more experienced and knowledgeable with now to he's not using that gear that he knows he can use well now against an enemy he's already fought, which doesn't seem to have gotten that much stronger, especially since the assisting Bugster he's already beaten and beat down with the level 3 form, so he knows he can beat them as well, and then uses the one is unstable for him to use alone. It doesn't make sense, as it's underselling Emu's genius gamer capabilities to use such a double-edged sword before he's mastered its use to the point that the full armor equipped for the Dragonite Hunter isn't going to backfire on him. And it does. So, it's not showing him as intelligent, it's showing him as reckless and stupid in a situation where someone's life was in danger, so there would be the exact wrong time to act like that. Seriously? It's like you're conflicting how he acts in both of his mental states, which we are assuming now to be a deliberate splitting of his personality to lead into the Mighty Brothers Goshot, to just allow Genm and the newly manifested Bugster to get away scot-free, and that doesn't work for me. I mean, there are a bunch of different ways they could have facilitated that same retreat that wouldn't have ended the battle so abruptly, and in turn, I don't know, wasted the CGI budget for the episode, which they did. One step forward, two steps back. It's the constant problem with post-Genm series and the two battles in an episode crowding out development of the story, especially when they cut the battles shorter than they should be. So yeah, with them gathering death data, this of course means they're going to try this again, and Don is being a bit stupid with how he's executing this plot, as it's like he doesn't care as long as he gets the data, especially since Kujo's onto him with the whole him being the Black Exide, aka Common Order Genm, and how he's just caring less about upholding that identity that false identity once he gets what he needs. So, second confrontation, pretty much. Emu does it alone, initially, because he's confronted alone, initially. Except he's not, because Kujo is watching the entire thing and comes over and, when Emu's starting to lose control, says some words about trust back to Emu when... Okay, I should probably elaborate on the situation a bit more. Don contacts Emu about moving the current patient into a secret facility because he says he has information that the Ministry of Health has been compromised and is the one that's actually generating the bugsters instead of Don. But of course they don't know it's Don because they don't know the Black Exide thing, and it seems to put Emu under a moment of crisis of faith in the person that he seems to have more faith in than anyone else. And retroactively, that kind of does justify the tearing down from the last episode and, makes it more plot relevant. I'm just saying it's still horribly executed in how it doesn't contextually fit with the scene in of itself, and Emu's actions and the actions of everyone else. It's a necessary plot point that doesn't follow from the rest of the story, and why I kind of wanted to why I went back to that and kind of all readdressed it since it factored in here. That, in that it threatened Emu's faith in him since he did nothing wrong, and now it's it pretty much destabilizes his ability to even handle himself stably in the full armored form, and then Kujo comes in, says some words of encouragement he kind of didn't need, since, the tearing down wasn't valid anyways, and then X-Side's back up and they're all teaming up. And it's like, because of this consequence of trying to write this from earlier, it bleeds more opportunity to flesh out Kujo's character and why he's not an awful person. Because, again, the problem with many of the backstory scenes justifying the other doctors is that they're so short with that they don't really fix the rest of the presentation. Like with Kujo's friend dying. He originally said it was bugsters. Then it's a more suicidal thing. But they're shown that there's some type of illness, and maybe time given to that would have been better while he was trying to research the surgery Emu had performed on him, and just, reiterating, hey, Hinata's a great guy. He wouldn't do what they're accusing him of. Maybe this explains, the philosophy Emu acts with, and it's not as ludicrous because this is a great doctor that everybody strives to be towards even today, kind of thing. More... You have too many characters. You're not fleshing them out. Why are you not fleshing them out if you're all having them play important roles? Why are you not giving them the time to these side plots that explain and explore their characters. That's my continuing problem with Exide right now, and, well, it was needed to fix last week's nonsense, certainly, so the show is more on track by actually building story and character off of that event. It was unnecessary in the first place to have it, especially since they're not following up on its use very well, since they could have easily just continued with the Kuroto Dan plot as was, and lead to it more with more Kujo focus and Emu focus and their interaction, kind of repair the relationship between them that was unnecessarily damaged when Kujo more prominently showed himself as a liar in his first few episodes. And, treacherous when, as I said back with Kujo's premiere episode, there was no reason he had to lie to Emu in the first place and break that relationship. There was absolutely none. So it's like, you're finally working on fixing something that didn't need to be broken in the first place. And at least it's still better than Ghost, where they forgot to go back to crap until past the point they should have given the Rebel an explanation to justify everything that had gone on in the interim. Hell, they never really explained what was going on with Mugen and its powers. So, I give them points for that, just not the soap opera-ishness of it, where I don't feel they're focusing on the things they need to be focusing on. Anyways, so pretty much, all four of the Doctor Riders show up now. I shouldn't say all four of them show up, I should say the other Doctor Riders show up after Kujo calms Emu down, and they all equip the Dragonite armors in the more stable forms, and this, I admit, is the interesting part of it, in that with Don trying to collect death data, he loses the Shakarishi Sports gas shots, and then tries to attack the current Bugster host victim, and gets the other riders to get his energy bar to 0, which we now have finally revealed that getting a game over in the rider systems will result in their death. Except, Don uses that, since he's trying to collect death data anyways, to collect death data from his own death. And somehow that keeps him from dying. Ironically creating the dangerous zombie gas shot, which he will be using soon. So, is Don now dead? That is the question we have, that is on everyone's minds, and is he undead now? Like, is he dead but not physically dying because of what he did with the dangerous zombie gas shot? Is that now tied to his own life? If that gas shot gets destroyed, does he drop dead? And it says in the episode that, actually this is a detail I haven't mentioned before, that the proto-gas shots that Don was using as his transformation device, the proto-mighty action gas shot, was debilitating and would eventually kill him, and he says in this episode that his body was already starting to fail him. So, is this now him in stasis because of that death data being extracted from him? Is he effectively immortal because of this? I'm very much curious about this detail and how it affects the show and him as their enemy, especially since from the preview information we've had about the Genm in his level X form with the dangerous zombie gas shot is that his rider gauge for his health bar is completely broken. So I'm very interested in what they're doing with this. Unfortunately, I feel they're rushing the the trinkets again with the show. And on the fortunate side, with the dangerous zombie Gashad incidents, they're actually building story out of it, and as part of its creation that plays into things as it not being that prominent a thing that overrides everything else going on. I very much like that. And with all of the main group Gashots gotten, aside from the super form, which will probably be getting acquired in a couple episodes, we're mostly done with the transformation trinkets, so the story can more take focus past this. And as Dan also reveals, it doesn't matter if they've cleared all the Gashots of the infections for battle purposes. Everyone's still infected, and they can cause outbreaks from any number of people to get forces for the bigger game. So, that just leaves us with questions on where they're going from here. And I really don't have any answers for that, as there's no teases for it. So yeah, Exide's irritances are still irritating me. They might be building up to something better, but I hope now that after most of this, the trinket acquisition is over, that they'll be more focusing on story and not just short interim fight breaking up shorter scenes instead of giving us an even presentation of the story. If you've been checking out my Daily Motion page, the Shoriki Sentai O-Ranger Fuse videos have just been completed. The Power Rangers Zeo review videos will be up publicly on Saturday, and I have since been working on reposting a lot of stuff Toei has taken down. I've got all of the Tyson movie reviews up. I've got Black and Black RX back up. I've got Zoo Ranger back up. I'm working on the Ryuki movies, the final parts of Agito, and the Thighs videos. Right now, those should be back up all by the end of Friday, possibly Saturday, and everything older than that should be done before the end of the year. With that done, that's pretty much been what's been delaying finally getting videos and actually put on YouTube, and also the question of whether I should put stuff up on VidMe as another backup for everything else that's constantly being eradicated by Toei's abuse of copyright claims and all that. So, if you're all interested, haven't seen those videos yet, go and check them out and all that. It really helps me out if you do that, and I will see you all next week, I guess.